Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today's date is December the 12th in the year of our Lord, 2023. Thank you for joining us tonight. We've seen everything that we needed to see on what was likely the fourth and final debate for the year 2023 when it comes to the Republicans seeking a nominee. And, as usual, once again, the leading nominee based on all polling accounts was a no-show at the fourth and possibly final Republican nomination debate for this year, 2023. So hopefully what that will tell Democrats is that, they don't have a plan. They don't have a clue. And all the more reason that, we need to turn out when it comes to the election of 2024. The former president is the leading nominee by all polling indicators. He's going to win the nomination. But yet, at all debates, once again, he's a no-show. And this is the prime opportunity for him to show up and make the case. You have a former president who lost the re-election. And you would think that, one would think that he's trying to show up to as many debates as he can to keep the voters that he had in 2020 and add to that amount. But for whatever reason, the former president, even though he's leading by all polling indicators, chose to be, up to this point, a no-show at the Republican primary debates for the nomination of the presidential election for 2024. Now, we're going to state it over and over again, because we may have new listeners. Some of you, may have already joined previous podcasts or maybe regular listeners. We don't really know. But we're all about trying to solve. And what we're doing right now is Democrats are trying to reach across the aisle to a party that is governing with closed fists and folded arms. But nevertheless, we're going to continue in the spirit of bipartisanship to try and, work across the aisles with our Republican colleagues. Now, Democrats, that, our job is not only to get up the turnout, get the word out, tell a friend, a neighbor, a family member of the importance of voting. Once again, we got to keep a fire lit under, the politicians and the office holders that we send up to Washington, D.C. And if they're there and they're doing the job that they campaigned on, if they're trying to get done in Washington, D.C., and we know it's not easy, but if they're trying to get it done with that 2/3 majority vote, the things that they campaigned on, we have nothing to complain about. And we have to understand as Democrats that everything else is just outside noise. If we're happy and content with our people or with our guy, whoever that commander-in-chief may be, then, as long as we're happy and satisfied, and everything else we have to realize is outside noise. And nobody makes it better than Republican politicians and Republican voters. Here we are at a time in America where we have a party of this two-party system that when the election is held and they lose, then they're going to attempt to try to seize power by force, which is so not the American way. And for the first time in U.S. history, here at the election of 2020, where we didn't have a peaceful transfer of power. So, in watching the debates, and watching the four candidates on the debate stage last week, it was pretty much, with the exception of Governor Christie, it was pretty much everyone else running to see, if they could be the best number two, the best vice president to the former president, Trump, as a running mate. The moderators asked him to denounce him, asked was he fit for office or fit to serve. And you see Governor DeSantis, He just can't bring himself to do it. Now, he loves his country. To hear him tell it, he loves his country. But here's a former president who was a clear and present danger. And the moderators are asking the question. They did this in previous debates, in asking about climate change, raise your hand. And Governor DeSantis has no idea, no clue of what it takes to lead. All he wants to do is push back against what he calls the establishment. But here's a news flash for Governor DeSantis. And all Democrats must help us get the word out. And that news flash is, it's not the establishment. It's we the people. We held the majority, and the majority of us chose to vote for Joseph R. Biden for the next commander-in-chief. So, you have the governor of Florida here, stubbornly, foolishly, and, working against his own state in some instances to push back against Democrats because he feels as if, that's the best way forward for Republicans is non-cooperation. And the country has never progressed in this way. The country has never progressed in this way. So, as Democrats, this is, not hard to figure out. We see what, is being offered opposite of the current commander-in-chief. We see what's being offered here. And, at a time where the Republican Party has just totally fallen off to a reality show laughingstock of a party, it's going to be up to us as Democrats to keep democracy on the rails. It's going to be up to us as Democrats to keep democracy from running off the rails and derailing. We're 246 years in. 247 years in as a country. We haven't reached the quarter of millennium mark, or whatever the word is for 1,000 years. We're not even a fourth of the way there. And we have one of the parties in this two-party system that has completely gone off the rails. They don't have a clue. It's duck and run for cover. It's put up a nice fight, a nice front, and then, if the heat becomes unbearable within one's own party, then it's duck and run for cover. Now, we're in, the season of giving, this season to be jolly. So we don't want to, dampen the holiday spirit here at Soluble. That's not our intent. Our intent is just to bring forth facts, to keep Democratic voters informed. And hopefully we can keep a continual fire lit between now and November of 2024 in order to hold the line of fire that we have with a Democratic president in the Oval Office. Now, as I said, it's the season to be jolly and to make merry and such. But at the same time, we still have a country that we owe our patriotic duty to see that it remains a functioning democracy. Now, sadly, and it's kind of the reason why we brought up earlier about 'tis the season, because on the Republican side, it seems as if it's also the season to duck and run for cover. And we got word last week, and sadly and regrettably, that the former speaker who was ousted has chose not to seek another term. So once his term plays out, he's bowing out. Now, another reason, as Democrats, once again, why we must hold the line, because the party is unraveling here. And sadly, we see that we have patriotic servants, politicians, who are up in Washington, D.C., trying to do their best for their base, whether it's Republican, conservative, that doesn't make a difference. We have these office holders who are up in Washington, D.C., trying to do their best. And yet, from the time of the former president taking office in 2016 to now, we have seen notable, reputable office holders who have bowed out, chosen not to run again, primarily because of what the former president has done to the party. They know that there's no credibility here. They know that there's no argument of defense for what the former president is doing and how he's conducting himself and how he's doing everything to undermine our basic institutions. He's trying to throw a monkey wrench into the system of checks and balances that we have that has worked for this country for hundreds of years. Now, what's so alarming about it is with this party, with this Republican Party, their symbol is the elephant. Their symbol is the elephant. And, if you know anything about an elephant, like we do here at Soluble, an elephant is an animal who tends to, bulldoze his way through. He'll take a stiff stance, and he'll force his way. He'll push his way if he have to. He's not going to be easily moved. And so, what do we have here now? When it comes to this symbolism, does the symbolism of an elephant for the Republican Party, does it symbolize, what we're seeing now, where we have Republican office holders in the form of Congressman McCarthy, who are bowing out? You have the congressman from Colorado, Representative Buck. He's bowing out because, the party's being ran on lies. The party's trying to be propped up by, falsehoods. Nothing that, reflects where we stand as America on any particular issue. Where we see our Republican colleagues wanting to reach across the aisle to get things solved. And so we have nothing there. As Democrats, we have no other recourse. If we don't show up, then, it very well could be the end of democracy as we know it. A party that has the symbolism of an elephant that is now actually ducking and running for cover, who are bowing out. And, if the elephant is the symbolism and it's in the true spirit of the Republican Party, you will see these politicians double down, grow a spine, be able to speak out against the former president if it's called for. We're not here to suggest and say that everything that comes out of the former president's mouth or that every action that he takes requires, pushback or requires rebuke from Republican colleagues or party members. We're not here to say that. But when it does call for it, then we expect this party that has the symbolism of an elephant to push back. And so, going into the new year, an election year, by the way, we don't see it. We just don't see it. And so, I can't say it enough. We're not going to dwell on the polls. We're not going to, lose any sleep over the polls. But to my fellow Democrats, you have to understand and realize what's at stake. And, up to this point on this podcast here at Soluble, we've kind of, covered the same ground over and over again. With talking points about what's going on with Republicans, talking points about what's going on with Democrats. And, it could be a turnoff. It could be depressing if you're listening to Soluble night in and night out. But, we have to give it to you like we're getting it. We have to give it to you like we're getting it. And what we've got for the last year since the midterms of 2022. What we've got from the last year is just what we here at Soluble told you before the midterm elections came and went. We warned you that, if we didn't show up and that if the Republicans got a majority, then it was going to be time for investigations and little to no legislation. And so here we are. Here we are. We don't want to wait for a way of life, a livelihood, a piece of Americana that we've all enjoyed since the days of our youth. We don't want to wait until we see that start to crumble, be chipped away at, until it starts to fade and or begins to collapse. Because once it starts to collapse, once the collapse begins, there's maybe no way to stop it. There's maybe no way to stop it. Now, it's beyond belief to us here at Soluble how after everything that the former president has done to undermine the system, topped off by insurrection on January the 6th, how he could be the leading nominee, the leading vote getter for the Republican Party. And, if you listen to our colleagues on the right and voters, it's just that terrible under the current president, Joseph R. Biden. It's just that terrible. And, we beg to differ here at Soluble. We're looking at the inflation reports today. The inflation has steadily been tamed. It has steadily been tamed till it's going down. With, rate hike adjustments here, rate hike adjustments there, it's going down. And so we just don't see the doom and gloom that we're being told is there time and time again from Republican politicians. And here's what, will go a long ways in, we feel like here at Soluble, getting politicians to work across the aisles once again. Although the current commander-in-chief is doing good things for the country and for the citizens in this country, you see where, he's going to get little to no credit from Republicans. Very little to no credit. And so, we would like to get back to the business of working across the aisles where, there was a time where you would have a Democrat in office like you have now, the case may be. And he's doing a good job. And at the same time, you have a Republican politician who wanted that job, who wanted to move the Democrat out of the Oval Office so that they could move in. And they would come with, first and foremost, that the current office holder is doing good, but I have something better. And that's where we've strayed. That's where we've strayed. The president, he's not doing that bad of a job until, to the point where we need an extremist, like the former president, Donald J. Trump. And we've heard little to nothing from the candidates on stage, from the politicians that make their rounds on the news shows, that make their rounds on the podium, for a press conference. We've heard little to nothing as of, how they can make it better. We know Joe Biden is doing a good job. But yet, we're waiting to hear what the Republicans can do better. And in that particular area, in that particular subject matter, all we have is crickets. But where they're loud and proud at is impeachment inquiries, investigations here, investigations there. All to win an election? Now, to the American voter, and hear what I say, Democrats, we're going to look, real weak as a party. We're going to have little to nothing to show in the form of solidarity if we don't get this vote over the finish line in 2024. if you support the president, you feel like he's doing a good job, even though there's still plenty of work to be done. We have to be just as vocal about it. We have to be just as vocal about it. Because the opposition party, our Republican colleagues on the right are not going to change their tactics. They have nothing to run on now. Or else they could tell us, how Joe Biden is doing good, but they can do it better. We have some contention now when it comes to Ukraine aid. Republicans are saying, we need to, get the border fixed first, or we need to, give some attention to the border. And you have the president come right back and say that, when it comes to the issue of asylum, if there are people who are coming across the border who don't have a legitimate asylum claim, he's willing to send them back. If they don't have a legitimate asylum claim, President Biden is ready to send them back just as fast as they came. He's ready to send them back. That's compromise. That's a start. That's somewhere to start. And so, as Democrats, as Democratic voters, we should be listening, watching and waiting to hear what our colleagues on the right, what is their counter proposal? What is their counter proposal? To give us something that we can say, okay, that's a start, or that they can tell the American people, say, look, as Republicans, here's where we're starting when it comes to immigration and the issues that we have on the southern border. And so, we eagerly await, we patiently await for them to bring forth their ideas for new policy, for new legislation on the southern border. And as I said, right now there's nothing. They on one hand, they're saying things that need to be done on the southern border, but on the other hand, they're busy with these investigations to nowhere, an impeachment inquiry without even sufficient evidence. Now, it has to be because they think that we as Democratic voters are not wholeheartedly behind our guy, Joseph R. Biden. I mean, it should be somewhat, alarming as to how shallow our Republican colleagues on the right are. They don't think that do they think that we're so stupid that we can't see through this? Out of all the things you can be doing with your majority, and you heard it from Representative Chip Roy, Republican from Texas. You heard it from Representative Roy. Out of all the things that you could be doing with your majority that you've had since the end of 2022. So here we are almost a year into a Republican majority. And what they want to spend their time on is trying to brainwash the American public. What happened to policy making? What happened to bringing bills to the floor for a vote to see if they can be passed into law? Good, common sense, everyday legislation that makes lives better for us as America and strengthens the country. What happened? And so Democrats, like I said, it's us that they think are stupid, because it's not Republican voters. These people are already firmly entrenched in the Trump corner. They're firmly entrenched already. They don't need no convincing or persuading with, false allegations or investigation with no evidence. They don't need persuading with those kinds of things. They're already firmly entrenched in the Donald J. Trump circle, in the MAGA world. So it's Democrats and independents where, we have to take a long look at ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves, how stupid do, our Republican politicians think that we are? The witnesses that they brought forward have said that we're not there yet. There's no evidence yet. And what do our Republican colleagues want to do? jump headfirst into more chaos. Investigations to nowhere. Now, on top of, Representative McCarthy bowing out, of course, we had Santos expelled, voted out. Now, here he is, doing cameos for money, ready to, air out dirty laundry of all his Republican colleagues, ready to air the dirty laundry out. Does this look like reality TV? Does this look like, everyday politicians in Washington working hard for the American people, as we become accustomed to year after year? This is what the New Age Republican Party looks like under the former president. A reality show run amok. And, there's the evidence. They followed the money. They've looked at the financial statements of former Representative Santos. And the evidence is there as to how and where the money has been spent. And what does the former representative do? What does he do? He goes into that reality show TV world, as he's been taught by the former president. He's a Trump protege. What does he do? He where the president says it's a witch hunt, you have former Representative Santos saying it's bullying. You have a mountain of evidence. You have a mountain of evidence for all to see in an open government. A mountain of evidence. But yet and still, former Representative Santos says it's bullying. Because it hasn't been, any criminal charges leveled against him up to this point. What happened to the good old days where an honorable politician would bow out? When he would bow out gracefully for the sake of the country. Now, by comparison, we do have Senator Menendez on the left. And Democrats are calling for him to step down. And what the senator's doing is he's choosing to let due process play itself out. But, as far as having support from his Democratic colleagues, he's lost it. The trust has been eroded. And they're stating it openly. Unlike our colleagues on the right. You don't see them stating it openly, telling it like it is when it comes to the former president. But here on the left, with Democrats, liberals, however you may choose to call them, they're calling it out. They're letting Senator Menendez know that he needs to resign. They're letting him know that he needs to resign. Because his conduct is unbecoming of a U.S. senator. His conduct is unbecoming. And, what the former president has done is put such a stranglehold on the Republican Party that, for the most part, they're afraid to just outright tell it like it is when it comes to the former president. Why? What's the reason? The sole number one reason is because they don't want to lose votes. They don't want to, have those votes. Whereas if they don't go to Trump, they're definitely not going to go to any one candidate who is criticizing the former president or telling it like it is when it comes to the former president. Love him or hate him when it comes to Governor Christie. He does have the guts, and it is what it is. He supported him in 2016. Who didn't? Of the Republican stripe. Who didn't support the former president in 2016? If you had an R by your last name for a Republican. But what Governor Christie did was, after careful observation, he was able to take a look at the man and the office that he wanted to continue to hold, the highest office in the land. And former Governor Christie was able to tell it like it was, tell it like it is. that the president is unfit to serve. But other than the former Governor Christie, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So, here we have our Republican colleagues. They're walking this tightrope, and it's a real tightrope. They don't want to denounce the former president too heavily because they want those votes. But then again, they don't want to, support what he's doing, saying what his conduct has been like since 2020, because, they know that the American people on the whole are going to frown on it. So this is a real catch-22 that is, has been created by the Republicans' own making, where, they have a leading candidate that they can't denounce, nor can they support. Now, they can't denounce him, the former president, nor can they support him. For love of one's country, you should be able to do one or the other. You can't play both sides of the fence here. For the love of country, you're running for the highest office in the land, for crying out loud. You can't play both sides of the fence. But yet, that's what our colleagues on the right are doing. And they want us to believe or think, that they're fit to serve. That they're ready to take the highest office in the land and lead America forward. Not keep it at a standstill, but move America forward for the next 4 years. In every which way, shape, and form: the economy, foreign policy, education, opioid crisis, the climate issues that we face, jobs, fairness in housing. They want us to think that they're ready to take these serious, important issues that are affecting the lives of everyday Americans and entrust them with them when they can't say one way or the other whether the president is fit to serve or whether he's not. That shouldn't be hard to do for love of one's country. And, if you're running for the highest office in the land, there has to be, a certain level of love for one's country in order to even want to hold the office. Because, this is not, the separated states of America. These are the United States. And, after each and every campaign, when the dust is settled, and, whether there was a Democrat or a Republican who emerged victorious, we've always been able to unite behind that leader. Now, did I say that we were able to unite and all get along and everything was great? No. We all know that democracy is messy. It could be, a real serious slog. It could be a bunch of red tape and hurdles. But we've always, after an election, when the dust is settled, rallied behind that one leader. And that's our position here at Soluble consistently. The former president, we wanted to see him succeed. We wanted to see him succeed. But, you're judged based upon the job that you're doing. The job that you're doing in the country. And here you have a former president who is so egotistical. He is so full of himself that he won't take time to even look at the fact that, he somewhat divided the country with his time in office. He won't take time to look at the fact that he didn't win the popular vote in 2016 when he ran against Senator Clinton. He didn't win the popular vote. And if the president, had any level of common sense rationale, he would be able to, look at these things, piece them together, and see how, it's possible that it just so happened that he lost this election, fair and square. He's had plenty of time to bring forth the evidence. Plenty of time. He went before the courts. And the courts work just like they always have since their inception into the republic. He went before the courts. The court says, show us the evidence. And we'll deal with Joseph R. Biden accordingly. No evidence could be found of dead people voting, ballot stuffing, or anything of that nature. This team could not show us where the evidence was. So, let all the conspiracy theorists, let them be silenced. Based on Jenna Ellis's recent testimony alone, she's copping a plea in the state of Georgia. Jenna Ellis is copping a plea. Sidney Powell is possibly copping a plea. And, these are the people that we would think that Republican voters, okay, they believed in them wholeheartedly in 2020 during the time of the election. Republican voters believed in these people wholeheartedly that the election was stolen and they was going to bring forth evidence. Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, Rudy Giuliani, the My Pillow guy. But now, fast forward to all these 2-3 years later, they're copping pleas. They're copping pleas. They were misled. They were given the wrong information. So you would think that it's time for Republican voters to come around to the side of sanity also. And so here's a message that in this season of giving, in this season of merriness and jolliness, that we want to give to our Democratic voters out here. Right now, the Republican Party is a party that is in total disarray. And the main reason that it's in disarray is because they refuse to work across the aisle to get anything done with the minority that they have. And so what they want to do is they want to stall for time, throw as much mud towards Joe Biden's name as they can. And then when it's time for election again, that they can win back what they've lost. And then, they're ready to put out these extreme bills with these extreme measures. And so, in the meantime, valuable and precious time is wasted. Taxpayers' money is wasted. And it will continue to be so if, as Democrats don't hold the line. We got that 90+ percentile of African Americans. That's a powerful block. That's a powerful voting block. And you're in the best place possible as African American citizens who are looking to level the playing field. You're in the best party position that you could possibly be in. You have nothing on the right as an African American voter concerned about African American issues in the country. And so, if we got that 90+ percentile that's there in the Republican Party, we have to hold the line. We need to hold the line on each and every issue, each and every measure. What's going on right now today, a serious hot button topic, is the Israel-Hamas war. And you see the current commander-in-chief, he's doing everything that he can now, even though, they had a veto in the UN when it came to the ceasefire. The president is calling out to Netanyahu to cease operation in the current way that he's carrying it out. Now, if you think that, and this is to Democratic voters, young and old, those who may be on the fence when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war, if you think that the current commander-in-chief, Joseph R. Biden, is doing a bad job when it comes to this conflict in the Middle East, what do you think is going to happen if the former president gets back in office again? He's already went over there. One of the first things he's done and moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which no other former U.S. president has been willing to do. But here's the former President Trump, full of ego, only to say that a Trump did it. He doesn't care about, the U.S. policy, where the U.S. stands. on any particular issue in the Middle East is just to be able to say that a Trump did it. Moves the embassy to Jerusalem, further stoking tensions in the region. Further, not calming things down, but further stoking tensions in the region. So, if you think it's bad now in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas, it's only going to get worse. And this is not, a prediction or an educated guess. We know this by the actions that the president has already taken when it comes to the Middle East. We know this by the actions that he's already taken. And as I said, we have a current commander-in-chief who's listening, who's telling the Israelis, whether they do it or not, he's telling them to cease the way that they're operating in Gaza. Why? Because that's what American citizens want. That's what the world expects. And you have the commander-in-chief who's listening. Versus, a former president who's subject to go rogue at any time when it comes to, the war in the Middle East. He's subject to go rogue at any time. And, you'll have senators like Senator Graham from South Carolina saying that, they're afraid of Trump. No one man is afraid of another. That's not how we're built. What the former president is doing is further isolating us as a country. Further setting us up to have a target on our back. That's what he's doing. That's what he's capable of doing with another 4 years in the Oval Office. So, we hear Senator Graham, a senator from a state that's always been a rah-rah state, the first to succeed from the nation back in the 1800s, the first to commit treason. So it shouldn't be surprising that, here's a saber-rattling senator, thinking that, if he put a saber-rattling former president back in office, that the world will begin to be frozen in fear of America once again, and that'll make things for all of us better. The senator is under illusion. He's under an illusion. Plain and simple. So if you look at everything that's going on in the world today, as Democratic voters, we have to look at each and every one, including Israel-Hamas war, and say, whose stewardship is this better prosecuted and or governed under? Somebody who's going to be fair to both sides, who's going to call for a two-state solution and demand that all parties come to the table. The Biden administration has threatened to, cancel visas for Israelis based on the way they're prosecuting this war in Gaza on innocent civilians, making war on women and children. So to the young voter out there, Democrat, the young voter who may be independent, there's a lot of things that can be done better when it comes to this conflict in the Middle East. But when it comes to the two parties and or the two candidates, be careful what you wish for here. One only needs to go back and take a look in time, a time not too long ago, when the former president came into office, and you can clearly see his stance on this situation in the Middle East. Now, what we can do and what we should do as Democrats who wholeheartedly believe in the letter of the law, the new position that we should take up and the new stance that we should take is that, there's no way that we should be able to accept that Nazi Germany persecuted the Jews, treated them unfairly, murdered them, broke them down, ravaged them, raped and pillaged them. And they were wrong. And now we will turn around and accept that, we have brought the Jews away from Nazi Germany, set them up in a homeland of British and American invention, and now it's okay for them to persecute the Palestinian people. This has to be the new stance of the new Democratic, party. when it comes to Israel, Hamas, when it comes to the situation in the Middle East. And, if we're talking to our politicians, when they come back home to their districts, if we're calling in and writing our leaders, we can make this happen because, we are the majority right now. We have the Oval Office. We have the Senate. But we have to stay engaged. Democracy is not something that you can sleep on. Democracy is not something where you can say, okay, the election's been had, my guy's in office, and now I can just sit back and relax for the next 2 to 4 years. You should be able to, but there comes some time where we must, demonstrate. We must make our voices heard. And no greater time of importance than now. And so that's our position here at Soluble. And we would hope that, common sense Democrats and independents will take the same stand. That, if it's wrong for Nazi Germany to persecute the Jews, then it's wrong for the Jewish people to turn around and persecute Palestinians. We're all human beings here. And for the sake of humanity, we can't justify, accepting one group, being persecuted, while we can have another group of human beings that we don't want to see persecuted. It's the same thing. Just a different name in a different region of the world. It's the same thing. Right now, Palestinians are being persecuted. They're being systematically slaughtered by the Israelis, and they're justified by eliminating Hamas. Well, Hamas doesn't come in the form of a woman or a child. Are the Israeli soldiers, is the IDF too coward to put boots on the ground? To go in like soldiers? You're dropping bombs on innocents right now. But nevertheless, when it comes to that particular subject, and, the Democratic approach versus the Republican approach, if you think the Democrats are doing a bad job now with the Middle East, it's only going to be worse under Republican leadership. So we must hold the line with what we got, encourage the president to do the right thing, to put the pressure and the squeeze on Israel to stop the systematic slaughter of innocent Palestinian women and children. We must insist and hold the line, hold the position, hold it, don't let go. That it's wrong for Nazi Germany to persecute Jews, and it's wrong for Jews to persecute Palestinians and systematically slaughter Palestinians. There's no way to square it. We're dealing with this from a humanitarian point of view here, and there's no way to square it. And so these are the different positions that we have going on with this one particular subject. Now, like I said, as it relates to the rest of it, and we'll take a deep dive beginning in the year 2024, God willing. But on any particular policy issue, any topic, any area of legislation, we got to have a leg up on Republicans as it relates to what's best for humankind, as it was what's best for the country. Because right now, the party doesn't have a clue. They can't get out of their own way. Right now, the new speaker, Speaker Johnson, he's under threat. If he cooperates with Democrats to the point where it's making, those rogue right Republicans that make up the Freedom Caucus, if it's making them uncomfortable and unhappy, then Mike Johnson is going to be, pretty much in the same predicament as the former Speaker McCarthy was. Simply for working with across the aisle with Democrats who have the majority. You never got anything done in this country any other way. And so, now you have Speaker Johnson, he's going along with the impeachment inquiry, because they have nothing better to do but sling mud. Why can't they give us a better policy than what Joe Biden is doing? He came with the Inflation Reduction Act. Give us something better. But no, mudslinging is the order of the day. Because if they think we're stupid and they think that, we can't see the forest from the trees. And it's really a foolish way to win over voters. But nevertheless, this is the plank that the Republicans choose to walk. And there's nothing that we can do to get them to change course. There's nothing we can do. Democrats are working across the aisles. They're willing to work across the aisles. If there's any corruption, if there's any corrupt politician, for example, Senator Menendez, they're calling it out. It's not a two-tier system. It's not a two-tier system until you have two politicians from each party doing the same thing, and one's being prosecuted and one is not. This impeachment inquiry against the current president is something that is made up. It's something that's created. Right now, they're fishing. And we're hungry for, common sense legislation on the books that's going to, affect all of our lives as Americans in a positive way. We're hungry. And the Republicans don't have to keep fishing in order to feed us what we're hungry for. But yet they are still fishing. They've changed the lure. They've changed spots. They made sure they're not casting a shadow in the water. But yet they haven't got a bite when it comes to the impeachment inquiry. 1 whole year in the majority. And as of right now, in this season of giving, peace on earth, goodwill towards men, coming up to a year of majority rule in the House. Right now, the only thing that they have to show us is that Hunter Biden is facing charges. Hunter Biden is paying fines. And so, the threat that Hunter Biden was to the American public is no more. And this is all baloney. This is hogwash. And, here we are. Here we are. This is all we have to give you. We want to work across the aisles. We want to speak in a way that turns out the Democratic vote. Because once we show a blue wave, we feel like it really and truly will, begin to end this gridlock where Republicans have to see that, we have to change our message. We have to change our stance. It remains to be seen if they're going to double down on abortion and a woman's rights. Because right now it's been put on the ballot in every state since it was overturned. Ohio, Kansas, South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. It's been overturned each and every time to show Republican politicians that, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land and it should never have been tampered with. So we're here we are. Here we are coming up to a year of majority rule for the Republican Party. And what you see is what you get. You're getting investigations. All they have to show for it is charges brought against Hunter Biden. Hunter's offering to testify in an open hearing. They don't want that. They don't want that. If you got the goods on Hunter, if you got him dead to the right, if you really can expose the Biden crime family through Hunter, let him testify for all to see and hear. In an open democracy. But yet the Republicans are refusing. And so, we don't know what they have to hide, what they're afraid of. But this is all they have to show for a year of being in the majority. Disarray, chaos, speakership vacancies. All because the former speaker was willing to cooperate with Democrats, to keep the government up and running. What a shame. So, as always, our message to our Democrats is we have to hold the line. That 90-something plus percentile of African-American voters who champion Democratic causes more than you do Republican causes, we're going to make the case. Going into the year 2024, we're going to make the case on each and every issue. So, you'll have the ability to make an informed decision. But as I said, right now, we're in a situation where, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. One of the main things that we heard, over the last couple of years is inflation. Inflation. Prices are through the roof. We're going to go into a recession. Inflation is killing us. But as I said, what we're seeing now is that inflation is starting to tick down. Whether it was a Fed rate hike here or a Fed rate hike there, or a lowering of the Fed rate here or a lowering of the Fed rate there. You have a commander-in-chief who's listening to leading economic experts. And so now what? Are the Republicans prepared to say that, the way the Federal Reserve or the Treasury has been, lowering or raising rates is working when it comes to inflation? It seems to be the case. And so it begs the question, are our Republican colleagues, as a way to begin to solve and ease the gridlock and the tension that we see on Capitol Hill, is there any 1, 2, 3, a small body of Republicans prepared to come forward to say that the rate hikes are working, or slowly but surely working? Once again, crickets, total silence. And all the noise is centered around impeachment inquiries and investigations to nowhere. Now, as I said, with the last, with the debate that we had on last week, it's a showmanship for who's best for the number 2 position. The former president knows it. Ramaswamy is definitely trying to be like Trump. Nikki Haley, she can't denounce the former president. Governor DeSantis, he refuses to denounce the former president. And so what that tells us here at Soluble is that they're all running to leave themselves open for a number 2 position. What else could it be? Because when you love country, you're gonna call it like it is. And that's what we do here at Soluble. We would love to call it and tell it like it is when it comes to a Democrat. If the shoe fits, we have to make sure that he wears it. That's what makes us a great party, and thereby makes it a great country, by telling it like it is, which is something that has lost its way with the Republican Party, to tell it exactly like it is. They'll spin it. They'll flip it. They'll use the art of the dodge. But what they won't do is come out on the podium and give you a solid and sound position on where they stand on any one particular issue. Now, it remains to be seen. As I said, the president has said that he's willing to, send those who are at our southern border that don't have a legitimate claim for asylum. He's willing to send them back swiftly. No questions asked. That's a start. So we're waiting with bated breath to see, what our colleagues on the right are going to propose. Or where are they going to meet the commander-in-chief at halfway when it comes to the southern border, which is something, by all accounts from our colleagues on the right, that they want to see solved. So it remains to be seen. We thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to continue to bring you informative information, fact-finding whenever and however often that we can, so that you can make an informed decision when it comes to the election of 2024. Because here we are as a country, 247 years into a democracy. Young by all measures of aging when it comes to a country itself. We're 247 years in. And if we're not careful, we're going to see it slip away. And it's not going to be gradually or slowly. It's going to happen almost within the blink of an eye, right before our very eyes. We have a party that's lost its way. We have a party that is still running and governing on the same democratic principles that it did since I was a kid in the early 70s. Party for the middle class. Believe in building from, the bottom up or the middle class out. They make that stance. They make it known that that's their position, and they get in office and govern from that position. And so, we're waiting to meet our Republican colleagues, halfway. They put in a candidate who was a loose cannon, rogue candidate, unfit for office, doesn't have the educational capacity of what it takes to be president. And so we can only debate and talk about, what the Republicans are giving us to work with. And so that's what we're bringing to the American people. It's not that we're trying to sow seeds of discord or, bring you information when it comes to politics that are going to get you more and more depressed or more and more angry. But we have to tell it like it is. Because, here at Soluble, we believe in taking the realistical approach and looking at things from a realistic point of view, not from what we wish they were or what we want them to be. A realistical point of view. And that's how we bring you, the information, the facts and opinions that we do on a regular basis in order to end gridlock. We're telling it like it is because we feel like if we're going to solve it, the truth can't be controversial. We thank you for joining us tonight here at Soluble. As I said, we've seen the fourth and possibly final debate. And so, as it comes to that time of year, we gather with loved ones, and we really remember the true meaning of the season, for the birth of a savior, peace on earth, goodwill towards men. We still live in a functioning democracy that, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time where, it's the time of the year for celebrating. It's the season for celebration and merriness. But at the same time, we must keep our eyes on the prize, which is American democracy, which is truly at stake from a rogue and vile candidate in former President Donald J. Trump. Until the next time, this is Soluble signing off. We thank you for joining us. We look forward to continuing the conversation leading up into the presidential election of 2024. Trying to win over Democrats, telling it like it is when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, and hoping that, we can turn this vote out so that, we can continue on the course that we're currently on, making America better, not just for one group here or one group there, but for all Americans, moving us all forward together as a thriving and functioning democracy. So until we meet again, this is Soluble signing off. We thank you for joining us tonight. We say good night and God bless. This is Soluble signing off. Thank you.